Thanks so much for having me today. It's a terrific privilege to talk amongst so many people, many of whom I recognise as doing incredible work in the STEM space. Welcome to the day. I think it's a really exciting packed program and I'm really delighted to be here. And I'd like to also begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that I'm speaking from today, the Cabral clan of the Darug Nation. I would like to acknowledge the scientific knowledge and traditions of all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, the sovereignty of Indigenous peoples in Australia, and to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. So I worked with some Indigenous people this year, and one of the things that was exciting was to sort of talk about, where you kind of come from and your own heritage. My own heritage is actually from the UK. My parents are mathematicians and teachers. My sister, a physics professor, also teaches. I mention this because although my own inclination was always towards the arts, writing and creativity, I'm blessed with a family that loves science and always taught me to value it. In the mistaken belief that I could be a scientist, I did study geology at university before going on to work in science media, doing a Master of Science Communication and then working at various newspapers and magazines for the ABC and finally founding Refraction Media in 2013. So Refraction Media is a custom science content agency, and one of the things that we do is the Careers with STEM platform. We also do a whole lot of teacher resources and educational content. We created Careers with STEM with founding partner Google in 2014, and it now engages over 1 million students every year. And through working directly with industry, we get some really cutting edge insights into STEM careers and skills that are in demand and what the kind of current problems are now. And today's topic is all about STEM skills, and obviously it's a very hot topic. It's been top of mind for government and industry, particularly in our pandemic-affected planet, and the massive transition of work skills and increasing focus on digital skills for today's students. So today we're going to cover the demand for STEM, STEM careers, education and schools, and our secret formula, STEM plus X. So, as you can see from this figure, the demand for digital skills cannot be understated. In its July 2022 report, Our Future World, Australia's national science agency, CSIRO, singled out diving into digital as one of 7 global megatrends that will shape our future. They found that the COVID-19 pandemic had sped up digital transformation that was already well underway, and that Australia alone will need 6.5 million more digital workers by 2025. Another piece of recent research predicted that 1 million New Zealanders and 3.7 million Australians, that's about a third of the total workforce in both countries, will need training in digital skills in the next year alone to keep up with this pace of change. These are some massive figures. Industry and government are approaching this shortfall in 3 ways. Increasing the number of people who come to Australia with skilled migrant visas, retraining the current workforce at scale through tools provided by big tech companies such as Amazon and Google, and increasing focus on digital literacy in students, and particularly girls. Boosting tech skills was one of the key areas of the recent Jobs and Skills Summit, with the Tech Council of Australia aiming to get 1.2 million people employed in tech careers by 2030. To achieve this, various incentives are being put out there. 180,000 free TAFE places announced by the government a couple of weeks ago, and 1,000 digital traineeships in the Australian public service over the next 4 years, with a particular focus on women, First Nations people, older Australians and veterans. Tech giant Atlassian also agreed on a scheme with union leaders to train 1 Australian in digital skills for every skilled migrant brought in to Australia to fill the digital skills gap. Australia's chief scientist, Cathy Foley, stated during the summit, "The major task that cannot be delayed is the development of a local workforce with high-tech capability and deep scientific knowledge, a workforce that makes use of the full human potential and the untapped human resources that exist already within Australia." So the scale of this need really cannot be overstated. And where does this leave educators? Surely the critical sector when we're talking about developing skills in the next generation. I don't know if any of you attended the summit or whether there was much representation, but I certainly think that, you know, educators are obviously the key part of this puzzle. So what's happening in schools? In a recently aptly titled article, "You Can't Be What You Can't See," Dev Mukherjee from the National Youth Commission Australia argues that we have a problem with careers advice and education in Australia. In short, it isn't working in most schools. COVID-19 has increased the challenge of moving from education into employment and exacerbated existing social inequalities. At the same time, careers advice, particularly in low SES schools, is focused on local industries, patchy in terms of availability, and misses out connecting kids most in demand by industry and sharing opportunities in digital skills and in STEM. Now, I speak from personal experience. I'm living right now in a rural area of Tasmania, and my son goes to a low SES schools. Recently, the girls were all taken out of the schools and up to Hobart, and the exciting day, and you can be anything you want to be. You could even work in the hospitality industry, for example. So I think that there's a lot of great work being done, but there's also a lot of kind of disconnect happening in some of these areas. The New South Wales Government says that the function of the School Careers Advisor is to assist young people in conceptualising their interests and skills while also providing information about career pathways and options. It is also expected that the Careers Advisor develop careers programs, organise work experience placement, and host career-related events. The 2020 Australian Review of Senior Secondary Pathways into Work, Further Education and Training by the Educational Council states that careers advice nationally is inadequate. Specifically, concerns have been raised about career education's quality, equitable provision and policy. Our own research, undertaken by Refraction Media with the University of Adelaide in 2019, found that there can be as few as one careers advisor for every 1,500 students. It is impossible to provide in-depth quality careers advice and education, particularly at a time of disruption and transition as we've seen in these last few years. Furthermore, in some schools, the central resource with the traditional provision of careers education, the careers advisor, is often a part-time staff member with additional classroom teaching responsibilities, the Careers Industry Council of Australia has found. So digital skills are one reason to propagate excellence in careers education and why it's so important now, particularly in STEM amongst Australian schools. The other reason is diversity. The STEM workforce, like many other workforces, has a diversity issue with fewer First Nations employees, women in STEM and people with different cultural backgrounds, neurodiversity and from low SES areas. Progress is being made, however, and this week new statistics were released from the STEM Equity Monitor. Is everyone familiar with that? It kicked off a couple of years ago and measures diversity every year and reports on that. So it's really great to have this now. So this tracks gender and STEM enrolments, careers and reports on it every year and goes right across the pipeline. The latest stats show that the number of women enrolling in university STEM courses increased by a significant 24% between 2015 and 2020, compared with a 9% increase amongst men. There was a more gradual rise in vocational STEM enrolments, where only 16% are women. Women's workforce participation is gradually increasing too. The proportion of STEM qualified jobs held by women was 15% in 2021, which is an increase of 2% in just 12 months. So good news in terms of diversity and the kind of programs that are having an effect now. And this, the other sort of great news is that there are a lot of amazing existing programs that have proven their success and are available to schools. And I'm sure you'll hear about some of them today, but I wanted to mention a few now. And I'd also love it, I'm quite happy for this to be a fairly interactive session. If you want to, stick up your hand and say, hey, what about this? Or, I know there's some other great work going. Happy to kind of discuss this and kind of talk about this a little bit as well. But the ones that we have here, if you haven't heard of these, I do strongly recommend you looking these up. Many of them are free and they're all excellent and internal support, external and internal support available for some of these programs. They include the Tech Girls Movement, New South Wales Government Elective Unit iSTEM, Physics Education, National Science Week, of course, and the Schools Industry Partnership Program, which is an initiative of the New South Wales Department of Education Educational Standards Directorate, through its curriculum secondary learners team. And I'm pretty sure Scott's going to tell you a lot more about that in the next session, a little bit about that in the next session. But it is pretty amazing, and it provides an educational model to engage students, to inspire them to study STEM and prepare them for STEM-enabled careers. I know that many of you here are also running some excellent programs. So what are we doing? In response for the demand for careers education in STEM, we created Careers with STEM in 2014. It's a platform for students, teachers and parents that's sponsored by industry and higher education, so completely free to the end user. And through magazines, events, web stories, YouTube videos, quizzes and socials, and now a podcast, it reaches 1 million high school students annually aims to inspire them to pursue courses and careers with STEM. So Careers with STEM works with the narrative of STEM plus X, where STEM is the foundation but not necessarily the destination. Careers with STEM started with Careers with Code with the support of Google and now includes a quarterly magazine on each of the STEM disciplines. It's meant to complement the existing curriculum, and it aims to emphasise and model diversity in STEM, show that STEM skills are part of all jobs through the STEM plus X narrative, and show students the opportunities in tech and STEM and inspire them to take some next steps. So here's just a few of our resources. We've got the magazines, the website, some job kits, and a whole lot of socials and mobiles as well. So we know what STEM is, so what's this X and why do we need an X? People often say, what about an A or an R or an M? We're always adding letters to STEM. So what is X? X is basically your passion, an interest, another subject, a big opportunity or a life-changing goal. Think tech plus agriculture equals smarter farming, or science plus business equals new space rockets. Engineering plus health equals new medicines, and maths plus shopping equals less retail waste. Whatever the students are into, there is a STEM plus X solution that can get them there. And it can lead to some surprising careers today and into the future. For example, people with STEM skills can work for well-known brands in online shops as data experts to understand their customers better. They can forge careers in business or be the next Elon Musk. I don't know if that's such a great goal these days. I've definitely got to find a female example for that now. I think the head of Fleet Technologies might be my favourite, Flavia. She's pretty amazing and is doing an incredible startup in Adelaide. STEM can also lead to creative careers in games or animation. It can take you into careers outdoors, looking after our environment without an office in sight. So on the Careers with STEM website, we've had a big refresh this year to focus on the X areas and connect students with these in various ways. They can search by STEM discipline, they can look by science, technology, engineering or maths, or they can also search by X areas, and we've chosen about 15 to 20 of those, such as animals, business, robotics, social good, environment, crime and justice, and much more. They can also take a quiz to discover their STEM plus X personality, and we have hundreds of other quizzes online as well. Or we can have hundreds of YouTube videos explaining careers with STEM and connecting kids to topics like outdoor science, animal science, Indigenous science, social good, and much more. So just to unpack this a little bit, let's take a look at how these X's combine with the STEM disciplines, starting with the S in STEM science. So why might someone be interested in a science career? So for a start, if you've worn a mask lately or have had a COVID test, you'll know that there's hundreds of ways that scientists kept us safe during the pandemic. But people who study science don't work in labs in general. In fact, the opposite is true. There are 13 million people in the Australian workforce, and 2.3 million, or 17%, work in STEM occupations. Of these, only 30,000 are lab scientists. So the idea of the scientists in the lab being the ultimate destination is really way off. Here are just a few images of recent profiles of scientists from our site. People with a science background work everywhere. They can work in the field, in government policy, in classrooms, or for big businesses. Some of the employees looking for science grads include Australia's Nuclear Science and Technology Organisation, the Department of Defence, and even Woolworths. So a quick example of one Science plus X area, Science plus Business. Commercially, but it's one of the big focuses as well of the government is looking at how we combine and commercialise our science and connect it with innovation. And I've just got an example here from Shan Wang, who's a pretty amazing scientist who started her STEM journey by learning to code in high school. She launched her business Roam Technologies with a plan to convert air to oxygen on demand in a small, easy-to-transport device. This could transform the lives of people with breathing difficulties, giving them freedom and reducing the burden of heavy oxygen tanks. My grandfather had COPD and had to be on oxygen. She's got a pretty cool business. I'm just going to show you a short segment from her video now.
Actually, I've kind of gone a zigzag pathway. This actually started off as a thesis project for me, graduating university. It was actually my honours thesis. And at the time, I think I was failing university. I wasn't doing too well. I remember my studies, my head of design pulled me up and said, dude, if you don't pick up, it's not going to be good for you. And I think at the time, I had a real good think, and I was actually walking towards my car at the time, and I had come across, oddly enough, a mum and her little girl, and she had this huge O2 cylinder. So me being me, walking past this, I was just trying to get to my car. You start to think, what's going on over there, right? As a designer, you're kind of curious and you try and do a bit more research. And I found out that people like her with COPD, they unfortunately don't have anything available. There is no technologies that are available that actually solves these issues. And it was crazy to me. We have technologies that are as small as an iPhone, yet, in the healthcare system, we have huge devices and they're hugely expensive, and kind of spurred me on, as a industrial designer by trade anyway, and that is my degree. You're given the skill set where, hey, if you've got this skill set, why not try and solve that problem? And that's something that's propelled me forward. I've been kind of fortunate in sense that the people that I met along the way that have supported my journey. I met a bunch of private equity, venture capital guys who have essentially taken me under their wing in that kind of sense, and have taught me the worlds of the dark pathway, right? The dark side, which is the finance world, to say the least, the commercial end. But it's been a very interesting journey. So my background is really started off with design, understanding the problem. And then I learned how to produce stuff with large companies, manufacturing, the production side. So that's a conceptual area right through to production. The commercial end of it is really how do you fund this? How do you turn this into some sort of business sense so that you have a viable company? Yes, you're solving a problem, but the company itself needs to be able to live in order to solve the problem in its first place. So I've kind of taken that really a zigzag journey. In terms of what we are actually doing, we're pretty excited. We're building a pretty exciting piece of technology at the moment. It's literally a device that can take in ambient air, so air from around us, and give you that pure O2. And the device is pretty much the size of, this is what I have at the moment, so a wallet, slightly bigger, of course, and it produces almost unlimited O2, of course, battery dependent. But yeah, so it's a pretty exciting piece of technology, and we think there's a lot of applications that are out there right now. And
so I'll just pause her there, but one of the applications that she did end up working on was purifying air in elevators and looking at issues with COVID and purification of air there. So pretty amazing, and I really love what she says about her zigzag journey and also the importance of working with a whole bunch of people, not just in science, but in finance and in business development as well. So, interesting to kind of look at how we might skill up our students in those areas too. So another Science plus Business success story is Parissa Salti, who developed a paper-based sunburn sensor while studying chemistry at University of New South Wales. And the blue sensor changes colour in response to UV light, so you can tell if you're burning. These sensors are really easy to use and a relatively cheap way of preventing skin cancer. From Science plus Business, now moving on to Science plus Language and Culture. There are many ways that we can celebrate Indigenous STEM perspectives and careers at the intersection of science and culture. And some of you might know Bradley Mogridge's work. He's a hydrologist and his expertise is in Kamilaroi and Indigenous cultural values of water and environment. He brings this dual knowledge of different science systems and ideas together to help preserve and understand our waterways. He says Gali, or water, is always going to be a key topic for Australia as it is the driest inhabited continent on Earth. But much of our water policy was developed through colonial settler laws without consultation with Aboriginal people and without using or even considering traditional knowledge. So 60,000 years worth of managing waterways there and thousands of generations of observations of this dry continent. There's growing recognition of the importance of embedding Indigenous knowledge into science and in managing our natural resources. So I say I had a great kind of deep dive into this this year, and we worked on an Indigenous role models in STEM issue, and we also developed a teacher resource that incorporates a First Nations perspective. It was written by First Nations people and from their science perspective, and provides curriculum-linked activities to connect with the magazine and which cover many areas of the science curriculum. And if any of you are from New Zealand, we do have Ture Maori version of that as well. So moving on to technology careers and the big picture digital skills, the T in STEM. Technology obviously has a role to play in every part of society, from addressing climate change to helping to reduce poverty, improving the way we shop, in addressing misinformation. I don't know if anyone has seen the ads for Mirror Mirror on TV about our phones. It looks terrific and says that misinformation spreads 6 times faster than the truth, which is pretty amazing. I don't know if that's true. Maybe I'm spreading misinformation like that, right? The kind of roles that you can work in tech have really evolved in the last 10 years since we started this issue. There's certainly a lot of place for the students who love maths and science, but tech careers have really, really expanded beyond the kind of computer coding type, and there's a lot of room for people who like to be creative and expressive as well. So we'll just look quickly at 2 Tech plus X areas. Tech plus social good. If your students are passionate about social good, and it's often touted as a way to include girls into technology, they might be considering a career in social justice, working for a charity or an aid organisation. For those interested in combining tech, there are many, many more opportunities than this. Tech plus data are helping to fuel an unprecedented movement for social justice all around the world, including social protests and social movements like Black Lives Matter. And we recently spoke to Harrison Mbugi, who's a security engineer at Google, and he's responsible for defending Google by building detection systems that enable Google to detect potential threats to information security. He studied a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science and a Master of Science in Information Technology and worked in many IT roles before transitioning to security engineering. He's also really passionate about helping others. He mentors Google engineers and other people interested in STEM careers, and he co-founded Youth for Africa, an organisation that aims to identify, support and promote potential in young people. Here's just a few words from Harrison on starting this youth movement.
Awesome. So I have to know first, tell us about founding Youth for Africa. It just sounds like an amazing thing to do. How old were you and how did that get started?
Oh yeah, I started, well, it's not just Youth for Africa was co-founded by myself and a friend of mine called Awadi Milasi. And this started when we were in high school, like secondary school. It was just, we were running a club called African Union Youth Club within the school. And while we were running, one of the things that we were doing is just trying to identify potential among each other. So within the club, we'll have sessions of some of us will be engaged in debate, some of us will engage in whatever talent each one of us had would be able to present. And we saw that was a really, really good success. And so as a result, we thought of like, how can we take this experience to benefit other young people around other schools? And so the idea of forming an organization came. And we started talking to people. We were young, we didn't know how you can actually form a nonprofit organization. And we were able to actually form one, named it Youth for Africa. And one of our first projects were just again, involving around youth volunteering program, which is helping, others, it's a peer-to-peer teaching, and then things like youth networks. So we try to expand what we already have, we already had at school, and that proved to be a success to other schools. And then so on, we went with other programs that like youth awards and so on. But currently, we're actually focusing on bigger problems. Currently, we're working on trying to bridge the gap between people graduating from schools and actually getting a job. So we're trying to bridge that gap because, you are going to school, you acquire this knowledge, but sometimes you need certain information to help you actually tap the opportunity that is available, because there's some jobs that exist, but then we see so many graduates that are still not getting those jobs, so skills, soft skills like helping with preparing your CVs, how to answer questions during the interview and all that. And this is through one of the program called Youth.
So one of the things that I really liked about what Harrison talks about there is he started a program in one school. The peer-to-peer education was really important, really what worked for him. And then taking that into another school and kind of growing that organisation from there. And also talking about the importance of soft skills, which is of massive importance for tech companies like Google as well, and just kind of helping people with the basics of getting in there. You can hear more from Harrison. We had a great chat with him with our recent podcast, If You're a Podcaster, The Buzz About STEM. So from social good to tech plus fashion, computer science grads are in high demand in the beauty and fashion industries. These days, beauty and fashion brands are using everything from e-commerce to artificial intelligence, augmented reality, and data analytics, of course, to increase their efficiency and keep their customers engaged. Carly Bates is a computer science graduate from New Zealand who works as a software engineer at Zozo, which is Japan's largest fashion retail. Carly works on the Zozo Suit, a high-tech body measurement toolkit and app that provides you with a tailored suit just from kind of scanning yourself and trying things on. Very cool. And she says that opportunities in tech and fashion are really booming since COVID-19. So from T to tech, we move to E for engineering, which is the most unrecognised letter of the STEM acronym. Engineering is, of course, all about solving problems. From developing apps, food processing, medical innovations, engineers design and build efficient solutions that we use in our everyday lives and beyond. And with the world currently facing multiple crises like climate change, natural disasters, war, pandemic, and food insecurity, people with engineering skills have never been in higher demand. In Australia alone, more than 80% of engineering graduates land full-time jobs within 4 months of graduation. Engineers work across almost every industry. They can specialise in mechanical, electrical, chemical, biological, civil and environmental engineering, to name just a few. There's also design engineering, process engineering, renewable energy engineering is also really, really growing. But engineering suffers from kind of the biggest disconnect in STEM. Recently, the STEM Equity Monitor stats showed that only 31% of girls were interested in studying engineering, compared to 62% who are interested in science. And while women make up 48% of Australia's workforce, they account for just 13% of the nation's working engineers. So how can we kind of bust that image of engineering? So one of the favourite things that we love to talk about is engineering plus food, because everybody loves food. And this surprising combination includes careers like process engineer, agricultural engineer, and chemical engineer. Engineers are actually important to absolutely all stages of food production, from developing sustainable agriculture practices to ensuring that food manufacturing equipment works smoothly and efficiently. And this happy girl, Imogen Kerr, she works as a packaging development engineer at Mars Food, looking at increasing the sustainability of their packaging, and she's helping to create a new plastic-free packaging for them. She says her job is about solving problems and bringing products to life. Another fabulous and very close to my heart X to combine engineering with is space. Australia is investing hugely in space, with $1.16 billion going towards a national space mission for Earth observation, which will see Australia design, build and operate 4 new satellites. The Australian Space Agency aims to create 20,000 new jobs in space in Australia by 2030. Many of these will be in engineering, including mechatronics, robotics, automation, aviation, and aerospace engineers. Space engineers could work for growing space companies in Australia like Gilmore Space Technologies or Fleet Space Technologies, for the Defence Force, or for big companies with Australian workforces like Boeing or Lockheed Martin. Thomas Ireland studied software engineering and now works at Gilmore Space Technologies, an aerospace startup on Queensland's Gold Coast, where he is designing and building a rocket. They did launch a rocket recently, and he's just going to tell us a few short words about his job here.
Yeah, so I think you mentioned, so after high school, I started studying a Bachelor of Engineering, majoring in electrical and electronic engineering at Griffith. But during then, I started a few small businesses and they were doing pretty well. So I decided to defer to focus on them full time. I was making pretty good money as a kid, but I was lacking motivation and meaning and purpose. Didn't really have a reason to wake up every morning because it was just money at the end of the day. I decided to go back to uni to finish studying what I was really passionate about, which was technology, and using that to design and build things to make the world a better place. So I was in my final year of uni and needed to complete a certain amount of placement days at an engineering company to finish my degree. So I'd heard of Gilmore Space, a company in the Gold Coast building a rocket, and I emailed in hoping to land an internship. Luckily, Gilmore had a great relationship with Griffith and their work integrated learning program, and I was offered a placement. And it turns out they liked me enough to keep me on board afterwards. So here we are today.
Well, congratulations. Sounds amazing.
Thank you.
So yeah, pretty amazing to kind of be building an industry like that just off the Gold Coast. So from engineering, we'll go to our final letter in STEM, and perhaps the most important, certainly with two parents as mathematic teachers, it was something that I couldn't escape as a child. But I do believe that the M in STEM is special because it isn't another field, it actually underpins all of science, technology and engineering. Understanding mathematical concepts, logical thinking, developing an analytical way of approaching problems are the most useful and valuable skills that we can have in everything that we do, including obvious maths-heavy STEM career paths like technology and engineering, but also in everything from trades and shops to healthcare, agriculture and conservation. So I'll just look at two maths areas, maths plus health and maths plus sport. Health is an absolutely enormous employment area. 2 million health professionals are set to be employed by 2025. And the digitisation of health is really driving a surge in maths-related health careers. They're also often getting headhunted from bioinformatics and things into tech companies. So you could work as statisticians, audiologists, dietitians, and of course epidemiologists, the disease detectives whose work was so crucial during the pandemic. Jess Lieberg, for example, studied network science, which is often used to model disease spread. She analyses air travel records and disease incidence rates to forecast the likelihood of a disease spreading in Australia. People with maths plus health skills can work in hospitals, but also research organisations on disease prevention and treatment, industry employers like pharmaceutical companies such as AstraZeneca, or health manufacturers such as ResMed, both companies with a big presence in Australia as well. People with maths plus sports interests could find themselves working as a performance analyst, sports scientist, exercise physiologist, or data scientist. Jake Ward here helps athletes prepare for their major sporting goals. He uses methods based on scientific studies to ensure athletes are the fittest, fastest, and strongest that they can be. Jake said he enjoyed his STEM subjects at school but wasn't sure of his career path. So when it came to uni, he enrolled in a business degree, thinking it would lead to a good job and a salary, and went on exchange to study abroad. But after a few years working in different office roles, he realised it wasn't for him and moved into a Bachelor of Sports and Exercise Science, where he's now employed at the Queensland Academy of Sport as a strength and conditioning coach. He worked at the Tokyo Olympics and now works for the Queensland Reds Super Rugby women's team. And I just love having that sports and maths example because a lot of kids are into sports and just kind of finding that way to connect them to things like maths and technology as well. So that's kind of the STEM plus X story really unpacked, but how do you kind of link this into the curriculum? And going back to our issue of time poor teachers bringing careers into schools. So what some of the ways that we can, of course, integrate into the STEM curriculum is through the sciences of human endeavour, of course. We have over 300 profiles of people working in STEM on the website, which you can sort by area of STEM as well as linking science with startups, for example. We also can sort those stories by Indigenous people working in STEM or women working in STEM. Communicating science is, of course, part of the science inquiry skills, and there are many articles on emerging areas of science and trends that can be used for research or as examples of science communication. There are posts about undertaking science research, and you can find information on people who combine humanities and science in their careers to improve the way that we understand and present science information. So just lastly, some key tips to get the students started in STEM, and here's just 5 quick ideas that we've put together.
There are 5 ways to start your path into STEM. Number 1, head to careerswithstem.com. Take a quiz to find out what your STEM plus X is. Once you have an idea of what you're interested in, use the menu drop-downs to explore career areas and role models by STEM or by X area to find out more. You can also search through our back issues and job kits for more inspo.
Number 2, look out for mentoring opportunities through your school, TAFE or uni, family connections, friends and professional programs.
Number 3, keep informed. Try out courses, watch relevant shows, connect with or follow people who have great STEM stories to share. Subscribe to the Careers with STEM e-newsletter to stay up to date with career trends, employment growth areas and helpful career insights.
Number 4, if you're at school, choose electives such as engineering, STEM, digital technology and design and technology, and see if your school has a coding club. Stick with maths and include science and maths in your year 11 and 12 subjects.
And number 5, when looking at your next level study options, don't forget there are plenty of study pathways to choose from, and it doesn't need to be a straight STEM degree. You can combine it with data science, gaming and design, communications and media, security, law, and much more. Now's the time to join 1 million students discovering STEM plus X. With Careers with STEM, you can find your path to a smarter future.
So finally, I'd like to kind of end by saying, what's the future that I would like to look for our students? I'd like to look for a future where STEM-skilled kids address climate change, reduce social inequity, and create an ethically bounded tech-based society. I'd like to see a world where STEM connects us together and connects our students to nature. Today, I see myself as a woman in STEM, and as science and STEM teachers, you are the crest of the wave that will take that forward and build those skills into the future. Thank you so much for listening to all of that, and happy to have a chat and answer any questions.